I just wanted you to enjoy these mic drop moments that I've found on CNBC. I've loved this coverage and I'm pretty excited about Bitcoin in general. This isn't financial advice, but just some awesome information. And pay attention to Gary Gensler, how he comes up with different things to bring up, and how certain people kind of go back to the same topics when it comes to money laundering and the illegal use of Bitcoin compared to the US dollar. Hope you enjoy.
He said that he got a huge wave of new investors getting into Bitcoin through this ETF. You have still suggested to be cautious about it, and I'm trying to understand how you think about those cross currents in terms of the message you're telling investors.
Well, look, Bitcoin itself, we did not approve, we do not endorse. This is a product called an exchange-traded product.
I just think the smart money and the institutions are in. Now it's going to be the bag holders that get left with.
What I think you're missing is this is a limited supply asset. We don't have a lot of limited supply assets. And there are a lot of people that believe in this like a religion, so they're not selling.
That's right.
And so
70% won't sell. So where does it come from?
And so you're going to drive price up as you get more adoption. Short-term people don't
Hodlers.
Listen, Europe in the first 3 days of this week issued $108 billion of bonds. 3 days. It wasn't even Wednesday afternoon. It was $108 billion of bonds. Governments around the world are issuing too much debt. They're printing too much money, and that's why Bitcoin's going up. So when we step back, this is a historic day because the U.S. government, kicking and screaming, Mr. Gensler, I don't think really wanted to do this.
Yeah, why?
Said you can now buy Bitcoin.
But yes, investors, I think, should be aware that the underlying asset is a highly speculative, volatile asset, and amongst its use cases is really for illicit activity, money laundering and sanctions and ransomware and the like. And I know that you've asked other people over the last few days, is it being used as a store of value? It's a speculative, volatile store of value. Is it being used as a payment anywhere? Are we buying cups of coffee with it? Not really. The only payment mechanism it's being used for in sort of in a primary sense is illicit activity. So I think you've been spot on about that, Andrew.
So just on that note, Mr. Chairman, this is out, and I'm not going to take either side on the whole thing, and it's kind of funny. But these are, I don't know the exact units, but if you look since 2017, what's been used to launder money, 20,000 is the unit for 20,000 is the unit for a dollar. 33 is the unit for Bitcoin. So that's a multiple of I don't know how much for dollars being used for money laundering versus Bitcoin. But now I could see Bitcoin bears saying, really? Well, it's not even good for money laundering. Then it has zero value. I could just see that as another arrow in the quiver for the bear case.
But I think there's another risk to Bitcoin. If you can't solve the bad use cases, the government's probably going to have to close it down. So that
the thing about the money laundering, you can think, here's the number was 20,000, I think, for U.S. dollars for dollars in money laundering, and it was 35 for how much is done with Bitcoin. So at this point, the dominant, I know, but the dominant,
we know about.
Historically, the dominant currency for money laundering has been U.S.
I understand.
Okay.
I do think this is a historic moment in the sense of it's the first time that the internet and Wall Street, they've had this healthy tension for a couple of years, even a couple of decades, and it's the first time Wall Street blinked, right? Think of it, it's an internet-based asset that now is being arms wrapped around it by Wall Street. And to your point, now that everyone can buy it, financial advisors are saying, okay, ETF, regulators are on board, I'm going to go put it in everyone's portfolio. The volatility is going to drastically dampen from here.
And they were unloading that today. And so, it was a net flattish behavior. But what I really did like is over $3 billion of net inflows into Bitcoin. And of course, remember, Wall Street's in a quiet period on an ETF like this. They really can't get the marketing engines fired up for a little while. And once they do, I predict that these prices will reach all-time highs.
And I have had conversations now over many years where you've talked about Bitcoin being worth something on the order of $500,000 literally in only a couple of years from now. Do you stand by that? How does this ETF change that, speed that up, slow it down? What do you think?
Yes. So you'll find in our big ideas, so that's at arc-invest.com, the building blocks for our price forecast. And our base case is in the $600,000 range. Our bull case, and we think the probability of the bull case has increased with this SEC approval. This is a green light. Our bull case is $1.5 million by 2030. You can see the building blocks. You can see how conservative we are in terms of those building blocks. This is a big idea. It is the first global, decentralized, digital, rules-based, critical there, rules-based monetary system in history. It is a very big idea.
I want to shift gears here a little bit. Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin ETF debuted about a week ago now. We've seen the price of Bitcoin come off since those approvals were greenlit, and we've seen shares of ETFs, including ARC21 shares Bitcoin ETF, come off as well. Is this a sell the news dynamic? Is something else at play here? How do you think about that now that we actually have these instruments in the market to track Bitcoin in a more material way?
Yes. Well, we're very excited that Bitcoin now is in the ETF wrapper and therefore very accessible at very low prices. What we do have, and there was speculation beforehand, will this be a sell on the news? We said yes, and then we were hearing that so much that we thought, well, maybe not. Well, it turns out that FTX is, I guess it's nearly $1 billion in GBTC, has been sold as this Bitcoin, as the Bitcoin ETF has come out. And I think that's been part of the pressure. I do think there's sell on the news because I think some people expected it to hold a little more than it has. But this has not disturbed our point of view at all. We think this is one of the most important investments of our lifetimes. This is a global rules-based monetary system, and it's a very big idea, and we think it's the biggest of all of the crypto ideas out there. So we're very happy to be a part of this movement.
Okay.
Providing more access to Bitcoin. This is the financial superhighway, a public good, and therefore we have priced it accordingly. But we're very excited about the prospects. Our price target, as you know, is quite high if you give us a time horizon to 2030.
Yeah.
Which is Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ETF. We're going to be talking to Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, who made that decision reluctantly, maybe even begrudgingly, which was announced just 2 days ago, and we talked a lot about yesterday on the broadcast. How big a deal is that for BlackRock? And this was, for you, a big switch as well, because you were a naysayer for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I probably switched. For the first 3 years of thinking about it, I was a naysayer, and about 2 years ago, I switched. And I'm actually, as I said in the last 2 years, I'm a big believer.
Are you a believer personally? Meaning, is the Fink family a Bitcoin buyer or a buyer of this new ETF?
Well, now I could do that. I cannot, I don't want to compete with our clients, so I don't buy single assets. I'll buy mutual funds. I'll buy single ETFs. So I have an opportunity to do that now. But I'm a believer in it because I do believe it is an alternative source for wealth holding. I don't believe it's ever going to be a currency. I believe it's an asset class.
You don't believe it ever becomes a currency?
No, I think we're going to create digital currencies. We're going to use the technology for it. We're going to use the blockchain.
How important is that, though, to then the long-term value proposition
of Bitcoin?
Of Bitcoin. If it's not something that ultimately becomes a currency, if it's simply, we'll call it digital gold, it's an asset of some sort, what does that mean?
It means,
in terms of price,
I believe it goes up if the world is more frightened, if people have fearful of geopolitical risk, they're fearful of their own risk. It's no different than what gold represented over thousands of years. It is a asset class that protects you. Right. And unlike gold, where we manufacture new gold, we're almost at the ceiling of the amount of Bitcoin that be created. Yesterday, we had the first day of Bitcoin ETFs. And our reorganization is taking that ethos of what has happened over the last 10 years. We believe ETFs is the technology that's going to transform every asset class. We believe everything will be done through ETFs. And so we believe this is just the beginning, and we needed to embed ETFs across the entire.
So what does that mean? If you're Rick Reeder, who we've had on the broadcast for years.
Rick is now doing more ETFs in his active space now. There's a great example of how we are taking what a very active investor and now putting that into an ETF platform. Let me be clear. I think ETFs are step one in the technological revolution in the financial markets. Step two is going to be the tokenization of every financial asset. And to me, this is where we believe it's going. So we're looking at Bitcoin, we're looking at ETFs in the same manner. These are technological changes that can allow us to move forward.
What did you see yesterday, by the way, in terms of inflows as it relates to Bitcoin?
We were very happy with the flows. It appears that we received about 40% of the flows yesterday. I mean, one day doesn't make anything.
Are these new customers? Are these people who are coming out of other funds? I mean, Grayscale is the biggest player in this space right now. Are you trying to take share from them in terms of taking those clients over, or are you trying to create a new class of customer?
Primarily, we're trying to create an opportunity for new customers can invest in this financial instrument.
Longer term, do you now expect other cryptocurrency ETFs? Meaning, do you think that Gary, and we'll talk to him later, Gary
like Ethereum
will have to approve an Ethereum ETF? And is that a function of something the SEC has to do, or do you think that all these things have to go to court first?
I couldn't respond to that. I see value in having an Ethereum ETF. As I said, these are just stepping stones towards tokenization. And I really do believe this is where we're going to be going. We have the technology to tokenize today. If you want to think about this. If you had a tokenized security and you have a tokenized identity, you, Andrew, the moment you buy or sell an instrument, it's known. It's on a general ledger that is all created together. You want to talk about issues around money laundering and all that. This eliminates all corruption by having a tokenized system.
Jamie Dimon disagrees with you on that, but, or at least to some degree.
Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks.